Hello. When we talk about greenhouse gas emission from companies, most people think about emissions from factories, power consumption, or fuel used in company vehicles. But surprisingly, in many industries, more than 70 to 80% of total emission actually occur outside the company's direct operations. These emissions come from supplier, transportation products, product use, and even waste disposal. Hello everyone, welcome to Clean Copper Talks. So these are called as Scope 3 emissions and managing them is one of the biggest challenges in modern sustainability reporting. In today's video, we will understand what Scope 3 emissions are, what Scope 3 inventory management means, the different categories of Scope 3 emissions, how companies collect and calculate this data, and what software tools are used for managing Scope 3 inventories. So stay till the last. Before understanding Scope 3 inventory management, we need to briefly understand the concept of emission scopes defined under the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. The Greenhouse Gas Protocol divides emissions into three categories: Scope 1 emission, which are also called as direct emissions from sources owned or controlled by the company, such as fuel consumption in boilers, industrial processes, or company-owned vehicles. Second is Scope 2 emission, which includes indirect emissions from purchased energy, mainly electricity, steam, or heating purchased from external suppliers. And third is Scope 3 emissions. This includes all other indirect emissions occurring in the value chain of the company, both upstream and downstream. Scope 3 emissions are usually largest and most complex part of the company's carbon footprint. Before we move ahead, let me tell you that I have created a series of videos on greenhouse gas emission, ISO 14064, and how to calculate the greenhouse gas emission. All the videos are there in our channel and a playlist dedicated to GHG has also been created. You may watch them. Now, Scope 3 inventory management refers to the process of identifying, measuring, tracking, and reporting greenhouse gas emissions across the entire value chain of a company. This includes emission generated from suppliers, logistics, product usage, employee commuting, waste management, investments, and financial activities. Unlike Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, which are usually easier to measure, Scope 3 emissions require extensive data collection from external stakeholders. This makes Scope 3 inventory management a data-intensive and collaborative process. According to Greenhouse Gas Protocol, Scope 3 emissions are divided into 15 categories. These are grouped into upstream activities and downstream activities. Upstream Scope 3 emissions, these occur before the product reaches the company. These are the ingredients or maybe other things required for the process and company. Some important upstream categories include purchased goods and services. This refers to emission generated during the production of raw material or components purchased by the company. Capital goods, emissions from manufacturing, machinery, equipment and infrastructure used by the company. Fuel and energy related activities, emissions from extraction, production and transportation of fuels and electricity. Transportation and distribution, emission from logistics and shipping activities in the supply chain, waste generated in the operations, emissions from the waste treatment and disposal, business travel, emissions from flight, hotels, and transportation used for business purposes, employees commuting, and emissions from employees traveling between home and workplace. Now, what are downstream Scope 3 emissions? These occur after the product leaves the company. Important downstream categories include transportation and distribution of sold products, processing of sold products, use of sold products, end of life treatment of sold products, franchises, investments. These emissions are often very significant in industries like automobiles, electronics, and energy sector. So why Scope 3 inventory management is important? Managing scope 3 emissions is important for several reasons. First, it helps company understand their true environmental impact across the entire value chain. Second, investors and regulators are increasingly asking companies to disclose scope 3 emissions as a part of ESG reporting framework. Third, managing scope 3 emission helps companies reduce supply chain risk and improve sustainability performance. Many companies have already set net zero targets, and achieving these targets is impossible without addressing scope 3 emissions. So, the steps in scope 3 inventory management generally follows a structured process. Step 1, value chain mapping. The first step is to identify all activities across the company's value chain. This includes suppliers, manufacturing partners, logistic providers, product users, waste management systems. Companies map these activities to determine where emissions occur. Identify relevant Scope 3 categories. Not all 15 Scope 3 categories apply to every company. Companies perform a screening assessment to identify which categories are most relevant. For example, manufacturing companies may focus on purchased goods and transportation, while software companies may focus more on business travel and data center energy use. Data collection. Step 3, data collection. Data collection is one of the most challenging steps. Companies collect activity data such as quantity of raw materials purchased, transportation distances, fuel consumption in logistics, electricity used in product usage, waste disposal methods. This information often comes from suppliers, vendors, and partners. Emission Step 4, emission calculation. Once activity data is collected, companies apply emission factor to calculate emissions. Emission factors are available from databases such as IPCC, EcoInvent, DEFRA emission factors, IEA database. The general formula used is emission equal to activity data and emission factor. This allows companies to estimate greenhouse gas emission associated with each activity. Again, a dedicated video on how the steps involved in calculation of greenhouse gas emission is present in our channel. You may visit that as well. Step 5, data analysis and reporting. Finally, the calculated emissions are analyzed and reported in sustainability reports or carbon disclosure frameworks. Companies may report this information through CDP climate disclosure, sustainability reports, ESG reports, or regulatory reporting systems. So, which are the tools and software used for Scope 3 inventory management? Due to complexity of Scope 3 data, companies rely heavily on digital platforms and carbon accounting softwares. Some of those softwares are SAP Sustainability Control Tower. This platform helps companies integrate sustainability data across supply chain and calculate emissions. It also provides dashboards for ESG reporting. Microsoft Sustainability Manager. This cloud-based platform helps companies calculate carbon emissions and track Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3 inventories. Persephone Carbon Accounting Platform. Persephone specializes in enterprise-level carbon accounting and Scope 3 emission tracking. Workiva ESG reporting software. Workiva helps companies manage sustainability data and prepare regulatory reports aligned with global framework. Sphera Sustainability Management Software. Sphera provides advanced tools for environmental data management, lifecycle analysis, and Scope 3 tracking. These digital tools automate data collection, improve data accuracy, and simplify ESG reporting processes. Now, the challenges in Scope 3 inventory management. Despite technological advances, companies still face several challenges. One major challenge is data availability from suppliers. Many suppliers may not have proper emission monitoring systems. Another challenge is data reliability and accuracy. Sometimes company must rely on industry average emission factors instead of actual data. Finally, mapping scope 3 emissions requires collaboration across the entire supply chain, which can be complex and time consuming. In the future, Scope 3 inventory management will become even more important. Several trends are emerging. Supply chain transparency. Companies are increasingly asking suppliers to disclose carbon footprints. Digital carbon accounting, AI, and blockchain technologies are being explored for improving emission tracking and product level carbon footprinting. Companies are calculating emissions associated with individual products. These developments will help organizations move toward net zero supply chain. To summarize, To summarize this video, Scope 3 emissions represent indirect emissions occurring across a company's entire value chain. Scope 3 inventory management involves identifying, measuring, and reporting these emissions using structured methodologies. It requires extensive collaboration with suppliers and partners along with advanced data management tools. As climate regulations and sustainability reporting frameworks evolve, managing Scope 3 emissions will become a critical part of corporate sustainability strategies. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to Clean Copper Talks. On this channel, we explore topics related to environmental engineering, sustainability regulations, wastewater and waste management, ESG reporting, and carbon accounting. Thank you for watching. I will see you in next video. Till then, tata, bye bye, take care.